2-1.
Is back to our screen again, the English Premiership, and of course, watching matches for this weekend. Don't forget, last weekend it was Arsenal taking on Manchester City, and it ended 2-0 in favor of Manchester City. What is it for Arsenal this season? And of course, as Unai Emery takes over at Emirates, and of course, for Chelsea, it was Maurizio Sarri who got off the way with a winning start for Chelsea. This weekend, what is it going to look like? Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Fulham, West Ham, Bournemouth, Leicester, Wolves, Cardiff against Newcastle, Everton will take on Southampton, Man City will take on Huddersfield, Burnley to take on Watford, Brighton, Manchester United, and Crystal Palace will take on Liverpool. And of course, discussing this with me on the show is Matthew Okugbe as we look at the Premier League preview.
Yeah, good morning, Demola. A good start, no doubt about that, for most especially some of the top teams. The likes of Liverpool and City continue to show that level of momentum we saw last season. For City, I think they've once again come without clouds, with that vigor that you expect a defending champion. I think as at this point in time, you don't need a better confidence going into the season proper, other than going into the Emirates and ensure you were able to put one of your rivals to the sword in front of their own crowd.
The big match, of course, for the weekend will be Chelsea against playing Arsenal. After Arsenal, of course, lose to Manchester City 2-1, 2-0, of course, at the Emirates. Unai Emery and, of course, Maurizio Sarri. Two new coaches, two new philosophy for the two clubs.
Yeah, but no doubts about that. I think it's definitely going to be a difficult one, especially for Arsenal, as at this point in time, they would be under a lot of pressure. You understand, knowing they've lost their first game, they would want to try as much as possible to make amends. But going to Stamford Bridge, you try as much as possible to nullify everything that Chelsea team will be throwing at them. I think they definitely will have their hands full. For Chelsea Football Club, I saw their first game under the tutelage of Sarri, who many thought, as at this point in time, shouldn't be the kind of manager that should be leading Chelsea team. But I think he brought in his own kind of play. You brought in a much more expressive kind of philosophy, where you saw the likes of N'Golo Kante, who naturally would just stay put in the midfield and do the dirty job, begin to show forth that offensive nature. He was able to get a goal in that one, and the likes of Victor Moses came in the second half. Chelsea, no doubt about that, a team that has been rejigged in some form. We saw the likes of the Brazilian, who was out of the team almost all through last season. David Luiz is now almost an integral part of the defense. I think Chelsea definitely might have their hand around this one, on the basis that Arsenal Football Club is unsettled as at this point in time. It's definitely going to be a frenetic fixture. One that I think will produce a lot of goals.
Okay, Tottenham against Fulham, and of course Tottenham. They were supposed to start their pre-season, of course, their match at their new stadium, the 62,000 capacity stadium. But of course, the match has been postponed for them. They will not be able to play that match at that particular stadium now. So what it simply means is that they will take on Fulham at the Wembley Stadium. And Fulham coming back to the Premier League. They lost in their first game, taking on Tottenham. Tottenham, of course, they've not bought any player in the last one season, and this is, of course, a very, very big issue for them.
One side that have enjoyed a very high level of cohesiveness in the last couple of seasons. We really do not see many individuals coming in, and they do not have this exodus of players who also are looking at the exit door. They know how to keep this bunch together and ensure they continue to play as a unit. I call them the underachievers of the Premier League. In the last couple of seasons, you saw the level of consistency. They've been able to push the top guns as much as they can. But I think it's time for them to at least cap this level of consistency, at least with a laurel. They are not, for me, the team that might be winning the the Premier League this time around. But I think they would continue to show that level of consistency that might also put them as one of the top 5 teams in England at the end of the season.
Okay, another interesting one is, of course, Everton against Southampton. And Everton almost, of course, full of new players, if you have to say that, almost like 5 new players that the coach had to bring in to, of course, salvage the situation in Everton. They are taking on Southampton this time around, and Southampton were not able, and of course, to get the winning start for the season. But of course, it will be interesting to see that Everton will take on Southampton in a mouth-watering match of course, as the Toffees take on Southampton.
If you just oppose both sides, you would say they are evenly matched on the basis of the talents they would have in display on that night. For Everton, we saw some players were shown the exit door.
And you know, after they drew their match against Wolves at the 10 men, it was interesting to see.
Sure. Yeah, for me, I think one thing they would have going for them this time around is the fact that they brought in some couple of players with flair that knows how with Charlie, the entire players who would be able to use the ball effectively. I just hope they would be able to at least take it a notch further. Last season, we saw them brought in some level of scintillating performance in some marquee fixture. This time around, I think what they need is to ensure that they continue to bring in that blend, that level of understanding, and the leadership that is needed. I think a couple of players who are still there, who were also part of the team in the last time out, would be able to garner this side at least to some decent finish at the end of the season.
The man is very, very under pressure. Of course, talking about Jose Mourinho, and of course at the Theatre of Dreams in Manchester United as a take on Brighton. What is the fate of Jose Mourinho come this match after the Manchester United took on a very interesting winning start, of course, as they took on Brighton, and this second fixture for them? It was interesting to know that that man Pogba is still not sure about his exit out of Manchester United, but what will be the fate, like I said, of Jose Mourinho? Brighton against Manchester United.
Well, a winnable fixture on paper, no doubt about that. You might want to begin to put your money that it is 3 points on in the back for United. But with the show or the display that I saw from the United setup in their first game, I think they are not as convincing as many would have expected. You would call Jose Mourinho some slack. Some of the players he was looking at were unable to put through. The likes of Icardi, the likes of the young man who plays in Inter, the goal poacher for Croatia. Yeah. Yes, these guys were unable. He was unable to see Perisic. He was unable to see all those ones through. I think these guys would have added a lot of impetus in that United setup. It was somehow scrabby and shabby in their first game. I think the United of old is what many are beginning to clamor for. We want to see a United side that would come into a game of that magnitude with that vigor and be able to make it count. They were able to ensure that they get maximum points in their first game via the skin out for their teeth, because toward the latter stage of that game, they were definitely put at the back foot. Hopefully, they would be able to come up. I think they still have the setup that would ensure that they finish in a decent position this time out. But on the basis of the team they would be filing out against, the likes of Manchester City and the likes of Liverpool are still showing that they are all gone blazing. The season has just started, no doubt about that. But I think if United really want to make an impact, they need to start making things happen as at this point in time.
Oh no, of course, talking about making things happen, it was Manchester City who got on the way when, of course, defending their title. Can they make the things happen again come 2018, 2019? Of course, as they take on Huddersfield. Don't forget, in the next 5 fixtures for Manchester City, it's looking like it's a scroll in the park all the way as they take on Huddersfield. And the question, can Manchester City retain the title? If
you look at the next couple of games, the next 5 games precisely for City, these are very, very winnable fixtures. You might go to bed and say, okay, these guys definitely would be able to get maximum points in this one. I think other teams should be wary of what this City side would bring to the plate. We saw them against Arsenal, putting the Emirates team to the sword in front of their home crowd. I think this City side one thing they need to do as at this point in time is to ensure that the level of consistency we saw last season is also inculcated into their play this time out. We saw how expressive and how aggressive they can be going forward, especially in their first game against Arsenal. But I think their next 5 games, these are games that can easily go to bed and say they would be able to put in the back. Right. For what I think the other teams should be able to do is to ensure that they also get maximum points in their games, or else as early as January, City might just be winning the league.
All right, thank you very much, Matthew Okugbe. Thank you for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure, Demola.
All right.